Joining us this morning is political commentator Inibehe Obiariri, and joining us virtually is the legal practitioner and human rights activist Inibehe Effiong. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Olive.
All right, let's begin with Mr. Inibehe Obiariri right here in the studio. What would you say is your analysis of where we are in our democratic journey?
We have retrogressed. The numbers, the figures show clearly that from 1999 till now, we've been on the path to retrogression. And that path of retrogression is linked directly to the 1999 constitutional framework, which I termed the satanic verses, handed over to us by Abdulsalam Abubakar and his cohorts. And the only way we can reverse the course, just like pointed out by the House of Rep Constitutional Review Committee, is for us to go back to the foundations. As a Christian, I'm aware that if the foundation is faulty, even if you bring an angel to Nigeria, he will still fail. The foundation is very faulty, and we need to fix that foundation. And that foundation is the constitutional fiscal framework of Nigeria. The only constitution in Nigeria that was approved by the people, agreed on to, when we say we, the people of Nigeria, was the 1960 and 1963 constitution. You know, I will advise the House of Rep, let's not waste our time holding memorandum conferences and summits. Fish out that 1963 constitution. Just slight amendments. If we want to adopt the present system of government, good and fine. But the whole physical governance, structural and socio-economic framework must be put in place. Resource control, 50% by the regions being the federating units, 6 regions, 30 to the central port and 20 to the federal government. Reduce the exclusive list to just foreign affairs and security. Let the regions be as semi-autonomous and confederating units as we had it in 1963. When you do this single term of office of 6 years for the governors and the president, rotated among the 6 regions and the senatorial zones in such a way that no region or people will claim that they've been marginalized. So this is, when we do this, and then overhaul the whole electoral framework. We are celebrating June 12 today, but we forget the fact that there was one man, the real hero of June 12 is Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Professor Humphrey Nwosu conducted the freest, fairest, and most credible election in the history of Africa, not just in Nigeria. The results counted before Babangida and his military junta destroyed that foundation. So while we are celebrating June 12, we must not forget the fact that there was a hero, and he's still alive, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, 82-year-old man that we should keep on celebrating. But we need to fix the foundation. If we don't fix the foundation of Nigeria, I will tell you, 2027 will come back here. Looking at the numbers, Nigeria will keep on retrogressing until we fix the foundation.
So we should do away with the current constitution as we have it now.
The current constitution of Nigeria is a satanic verse.
All right. Let's bring in Inibehe Effiong, who is a lawyer. And Inibehe, what are your reactions to this? Looking at the current constitution, our guest in the studio has said we should do away with it completely. So I want you to talk to us, react to that, and then share with us also your analysis of Nigeria's democratic journey, looking at it from the legal standpoint, the role that the judiciary has to play, and the role of law, you know, in all of this conversation.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I agree with what the last speaker has said substantially. Constitutional amendment in Nigeria is more or less a money-making venture for every session of the National Assembly. It has become some sort of ritual for them that when every National Assembly is inaugurated, they embark on this very elaborate and grandiose exercise called constitutional amendment. Every 4 years, every Senate president wants to spend public funds on constitutional amendment. So you begin to wonder what exactly the interest is. Why do we need to amend the Constitution every legislative cycle, every legislative term? It is because billions of public funds is voted for this purpose with little or no accountability. This is also an admission by Parliament that the current constitutional framework, the current document that we call the ground norm, is not working. So if you have realized that the 1999 Constitution is really, really defective and requires amendment, why not do it at once? Why not go to the foundation of the matter? Why do you have to come back every legislative cycle to embark on constitutional amendment? Don't be surprised in the next legislative cycle, if we have a new leadership in the National Assembly, or possibly the current leadership is maintained, we may still see another conditional amendment exercise. So they just use this to make money. But that is not to ignore the fact that the 1999 Constitution needs to be reworked, needs to be amended substantially. But I don't really like the language of amendment, really. I would have preferred that we have a fresh and brand new Constitution. Whether we want to revert to the 1963 Constitution or whether we want to have a completely new Constitution with a new constitutional structure and framework for the country, that is a discussion that Nigerians should have, not these piecemeal legislative interventions here and there that we have been witnessing over the years. Now, in terms of democratic experiments since 1999, I think Nigeria has been an embarrassment to Africa. I think Nigeria has been a black spot on the global map. We haven't really behaved as a civilized society. We have not been able to fix our electoral process. We have not been able to fix our governance process. We have not been able to fix our institutions of government. We have not been able to show respect for human rights, respect for democratic principles. We are still behaving like a society that is under the yoke of military dictatorship. And look at the irony that yesterday, on June 11, you had the State Security Service, you had the police, and you even had some spokesperson in the presidency issuing statements threatening Nigerians not to exercise their right to protest, not to come out to express disapproval with the current terrible situation in the country. So you cannot be saying you are celebrating Democracy Day and then you are doing everything to sabotage democracy. So what we have are just plunderers. What we have is just a rent-seeking, fatalistic political establishment that would rather destroy and ruin the country than do the right thing. So I don't really think there is much for us to celebrate, really, because I personally am indifferent. I understand the president made a broadcast today. I don't know the last time I had time to listen to presidential broadcasts. If I don't have what to do with my time, I go and watch movies. I don't have time to listen to this repeated empty words that does not add anything to our country.
Yeah. I mean, now that you've spoken about the president's speech, I will probably pick up from there before we go back to Mr. Obiari. I want you to also speak. The president made mention of the importance of the electoral process, and of course, how that also shapes, democracy and why it's also an important, ideal of, a democratic nation. But I want you to speak with regards that he came into office with elections that many, had issues with. A lot of Nigerians didn't think that that election was the, freest or the fairest. And so do you expect, that knowing that, and of course him stating the importance of free, fair and credible elections, that president will then, with the speed that they used to change the national anthem, amongst other things, and the speed that they used to, of course, approve the Coastal Highway project, do you expect, that they would also maybe put in that same speed into making adjustments, necessary adjustments to Nigeria's electoral process, maybe the Electoral Act, or at least to purify the process of, elections under President Tinubu?
Well, what an interesting question. I think I can also ask you, do you expect the cats to preserve the life of the rats? The truth of the matter is that a man who is a beneficiary of a rotten electoral system cannot be an advocate of cleaning up that system. Let us stop pretending in this country. Tinubu is not going to advocate electoral reforms because historically, if you look at his antecedent as a politician, even from Lagos, I don't think he's the best person to advocate for electoral reform. 1 year has passed, right? If the president is committed to electoral reform, we saw what the late Yar'Adua did with all his flaws. When Yar'Adua came into office in 2007, he admitted that the election that brought him to office was flawed. And what did he do? He went ahead to impanel the Justice Mohammed West Electoral Reform Committee, right? And there was even some legislative bills that were introduced to reform our electoral system, the late Yar'Adua. What has this president done? What do you expect a Tinubu to do? Grab it, snatch it, and run with it. A man whose dogma is one of grabbing, right? A man who came to power and told you a miloko. So you want him to go and legislate a miloko You want him to go and put a milokong in the Electoral Act, or you want him to depart from his belief that this is his turn to now make it the turn of the Nigerian people. I think we should be very careful and cautious in our expectations about this government. 1 year has passed. There is no executive bill to the parliament, right, to address the issues that came out of the last general election. And look, let us also look at it the other way. Yes, we need good laws, but our problem as the country hasn't really been laws. It is the implementation. It is individuals that have the duty to execute the laws. How do you expect a Mahmoud Yakubu, a man who stood before Chatham House in London, a man who stood before the Nigerian people in different fora, to promise that there will be live transmission of results, that IREF was going to work and collected humongous public resources for that purpose? At the end of the day, that process was sabotaged. He has not apologized. He has not resigned. We have seen little or no accountability. A man under whose leadership INEC even sabotaged the effort of petitioners to prove their case by denying them relevant electoral materials. You expect him to now come and conduct another, a credible election. What we have is a country that is in the hand of a kleptomaniac political class. People that have made up their minds that they are going to ruin the country. People who don't believe, look, our politicians do not, I don't want to call them leaders, our politicians do not believe in this country. That is why they go abroad for healthcare. That is why they send their children abroad. That is why they acquire properties abroad. Mentally, the Nigerian political establishment has seceded from the country.
All right.
They just see Nigeria as, a special purpose vehicle for self-enrichment. So I think we should be very careful in our expectations.
Yeah.
Regarding the issue of building a coastal highway with trillions of naira, it shows you how unserious the government is. A government that is struggling to pay minimum wage, living wage, is saying that it's going to have trillions, right, to go and build a coastal highway in an economy that there is no electricity, in a country that people don't have access. Many people don't have access to pipe-borne water. In a country that our educational institutions are in shambles. In a country that our healthcare system is nothing to write home about. You want to go and build coastal highway with trillions of naira.
Inibehe, I'm
that
also
shows
glad
the mindset of people that are in positions of power in this country.
You just mentioned that the country has said that they cannot afford to pay labor, yet they are doing all of these very flamboyant projects. I'd like to bring in Mr. Obiariri to talk about how the government has handled the negotiations with the NLC. Even in the president's speech today, he did say that, maybe I should actually quote him, he said, in the face of Labour's call for a national strike, we did not seek to oppress or crack down on the workers as a dictatorial government would have done. We chose the path of cooperation over conflict. No one was arrested or threatened. Instead, the Labour leadership was invited to break bread and negotiate toward a good faith resolution. So I want you to share with us from your standpoint what your analysis of how the government has handled the negotiation with Labour so far.
I think I blame the Labour Union. I blame them because the president and the government of the day have no right even to, be talking about, oh, we did not oppress them. If Labour had done what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't be at this position. Let's look back to history. In 1979, the salary of the Senate president under the First Republic, the Second Republic, in dollar equivalent was about $2,370 per annum. That is per month. That is $17,000 then. Exchange rate was 60 kobo to $1. The minimum wage then was $208 equivalent to 125 naira. And that was the ratio of 12 to 1. If we are to just oppose it today, minimum wage, if the average senator is collecting 37 million naira in all allowance and everything, the minimum wage should be 3.2 million naira per month. If the senators insist that minimum wage should be 60,000 naira, the Labour Congress should insist that their salary should be times 12 of that, which is about 600 times 11, 606,000 naira per month, and they will have to enforce it. You see, I am so embarrassed that Labour is allowing this thing to linger. They came too late to the party. If I am the president of NLC or TUC, we will have started this shutdown of Nigeria when 70 billion naira was approved for the National Assembly for relocation allowance. That money wouldn't have been allowed to be approved. We will have shut down Nigeria the moment they approve 40 billion naira for them to buy SUVs. We will have shut down Nigeria the moment they approve 57 billion naira for themselves for rice palliative, which most of them pocketed. The truth is, beyond even asking for minimum wage, scientifically, minimum wage should be between 120,000 naira to 150,000 naira. What Labour should be insisting is that the over 60% of our appropriated expenses are looted annually. If we plug the holes, Nigeria can comfortably pay 120,000 naira minimum wage without even any stress. And I will explain to you why. Go and look at the budgets of most of the states in Nigeria. You will see a governor appropriated over 27, 28 billion naira for government house expenses. What are they spending the money on? Private jet flying around Nigeria and all those stuff. So Labour should go beyond asking for minimum wage. They should stick their gun. There is no state in Nigeria that will not pay 120,000 naira if they look inward to harness resources in their state to stop the leakages, the thievery, and the looting. Labour should insist on minimum wage of 120, no shifting ground. Labour should also insist that the salaries and wages of the political office holders must be aligned to that of the civil service or that of the ASU academic staff union. And they should go beyond, because if you shut down the national grid, it will not affect them. These guys have access to turbines, even in their homes. They will use taxpayers' money to buy diesel. What Labour should be doing, target everywhere that have access to power to those areas, government houses, cut it off. No paying the tanker drivers should load their tankers and block every entrance to every government's houses, even their residential areas.
So you don't think that it's economic sabotage?
It's not economic sabotage.
Of terrorism.
See, Olive, Nigeria belongs to each and every. These guys do not understand their position. The average political office holder is an employee. We employed them, for crying out loud. These guys are not emperors. These guys are not lords. They are there at our mercy. The monies they are spending, our monies. It's not their private estate. It is high time we make them realize the fact that a president is an employee. Look at Malawi, look at Zambia, look at the Zambian president. When he became president, they wanted to approve $1.8 million for him to buy SUVs. He asked them one question. The vehicles that were being used by the former president, are the engines working? They said yes. Are the tires there? They said yes. He said, I will use it. We have a presidential fleet of over 12 aircraft that will spend tens of billions of naira annually servicing. What stopped them from selling down 60% of that fleet? How many presidential fleet does the Prime Minister of Britain have? How many presidential fleet does the Trudeau of Canada? You should check it and you discover that this country is bleeding. Just like Inibehe said, the average Nigerian politician sees political office as an avenue to loot, to steal, and to share. Their children are not affected when there is a strike in the universities. They are not affected when there is strike in the medical, because they've seceded from Nigeria mentally. They only see Nigeria as an avenue for them to loot and to steal and to shop. Labour should insist. See, it's an opportunity for Nigerians to actually rally around Labour. I've always blamed, but this time around, anyway, maybe I'm misplacing so much trust on Nigeria Labour Union and TUC. Yeah. Beyond asking for minimum wage, they must insist that the salaries of the civil servants, of the political office holders, from Mr. President to the governors, must be aligned to that of the civil service. If the average professor in the university will not have an SUV, the governor should not have an SUV. I don't think a governor is more important than a professor in any university.
I don't see the possibility of what you're asking for happening, Mr. Obiariri, because I mean, it feels like you're asking for, I don't know if I should call it the impossible.
Olive is not impossible. You know, I tell us this. Religion has been one of the major problems of Nigeria. And I shout to anybody, God cannot come down from heaven to fix this land. We need to stand in the gap. I give you an example. Bible records in the time in Babylon, when a lot of people were abducted. Babylon destroyed Jerusalem. Professors were abducted. Clergymen were abducted. Scribes and the priests. But it took only 4 young men, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to stand in the gap. In fact, it took 3. When everybody bowed to the wickedness in the land, and as many are bowing to the wickedness in this land, 3 of them said, we will not. For the first time, they called Nebuchadnezzar by his name. All Nebuchadnezzar will not do this. It's against our faith. It's against our belief. As even when they were being thrown into the furnace, they said, if we perish, we perish, but we will not bow. It was after they were thrown into the furnace that the 4th man appeared. The fourth man cannot appear in Nigeria until we stand up against this guy. Let me tell you, these guys cannot change. They will never change until there is a turnaround in the mentality and understanding of the average Nigerian. When many of us come to understand that these guys are employees, I don't see the president or the governor or any of them as superior to me or any Nigerian.
Yeah.
They are there at our mercy. And the moment they begin to realize this, all of them will bow and understand the power of the people.
All right, Inibehe here, we have about 3 minutes before we go on a break, but I want you to quickly share your thoughts on some of the things Mr. Obiari has said. Do you agree, on the steps that Labour should take? Do you also think that Labour is failing to be able to convey its message properly to Nigerians in order to get the support that it needs to make these, changes, or, even protest enough, in defense of the Nigerian people? Have they failed to convey their message well enough? And where is the civic society or civil society? It doesn't seem to exist anymore. And it's one of the things that you would expect to have in a proper democracy, the presence of a fully functional civil society. So, Inibehe, quickly, we have about 3 minutes, we'll go on a break, but, you can start, your response.
I agree with Mr. Obiari in total, completely. He has made the point fantastically. The truth of the matter is that the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC, they haven't really done much to inspire the confidence of the Nigerian people. We have seen attempts at industrial action. We have seen attempts at holding the government accountable. And just when you think they are going to be serious, they throw in the towel. Look at even the contradictions in the way they are handling the current agitation. They have said they were giving initially they said they were relaxing the strike, which is actually, an interesting terminology. They said they were not suspending. They were relaxing the action for a few days, about a week, to enable the government to discuss and to enable the tripartite committee to come up with resolutions. At the end of the day, the government and the private sector said 62,000. Labour said 250,000. They are now submitting it to the president to take a decision. When is the president going to take the decision? So the truth is that the labor unions over time have really not lived up to expectation. Regarding the civil society, I agree with you that the civil society in Nigeria today, is not very vibrant. We don't see street demonstrations. We don't see protests. We don't see civic actions. We hardly even see press conferences these days. So I think that is where some of us must also take some level of blame for how the civic space, has some sort of been conquered. But let us not deceive ourselves. The government from the Buhari regime have done everything to bastardize, to organize, and to render ineffective the Nigerian civil society. Protest has been clamped down on protest. People have been tagged. Recall the what happened during the NSAS, the shooting at the toll gates. You did no accountability. Citizens are killed at random. Carrying placard. So I agree that a lot has to be done to hold this government accountable.
Okay. All right. We understand that you, of course, have to get on to other activities this morning, but thank you very much for your time. Inibehe Effiong, always interested in hearing your perspectives on these stories, and we look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. My pleasure being with you.
Right.
Thank you.
To our viewers, stay with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, the conversations continue this morning. We still have Nnameka Obiari with us, and we'd like him to expand more on the disparity between a professor's salary who works 35, 40 years in service and that of a governor or a senator. We'll talk about that when we come back. Welcome once again to our Democracy Day special here on News Central Television. We're still speaking with Nnameka Obiari, and of course the conversations continue this morning. Before, of course, we move on to other things, maybe about the economy, that you will also get to speak on. I want your thoughts. You had initially started talking about one of the things you mentioned earlier was, why you don't agree that a professor, or someone who has risen to the height of his career, worked for 30, 35 years in service, should earn what they currently earn in Nigeria compared to what members of the National Assembly earn, compared to what a governor earns. What narrative would you use to defend that, those thoughts?
Okay. Let's look at the First Republic. We had a parliament that was part-timers, and their salary was tied to that of the civil service. And it was such that in the First Republic, one of the wealthiest men in Africa, Sir Louis Odimegwu, was a member of parliament. He was the chairman of 15 top corporations in Nigeria, the top of the top 15 corporations. He did not go to parliament because he wanted to make money. He went to parliament because he wanted to add his wealth of experience, his knowledge into developing policies and making laws that will help us to build Nigeria. What do we have today? Mostly people jostling to show up their sagging economic life, greedy kleptomaniacs whose only sense of duty is to just go acquire power, loot power to enable them loot the resources of Nigeria. The NUC, NLC, the TUC, even members of that kind of service. See, there's no mistaking it here. The governor is no more important than the professor in the university. Mr. President is no more important than the medical director of University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital or LASU Teaching Hospital. Therefore, we must align the perks and perquisites of office to that of the civil servants. This idea, oh, the president must have a convoy of 1 million cars, should not be allowed. We must have to amend the constitution, amend the fiscal framework, and these things must be inserted. Nigeria is not the only democracy in the whole world. And we cannot allow this kind of waste, this kind of profligacy, this kind of oppression. The National Union of the NLC and TUC must insist. It has gone beyond asking for minimum wage. They should expand the discussion. And see, this one, you saw they say that they are going to conclude amendment December 2025. The truth is, we don't have the luxury of time. We can amend the whole constitution within the next 1 month if these guys are sincere. Like Inibehe said, all they are trying to do is to see how they can railroad and loot billions of naira by word of caution. It's not necessary. They should do the right thing. And there's something they are forgetting. There's nobody that will stay in power forever. Goodluck Jonathan was in power for 5 years, no longer the president. And if these guys have some level of conscience, what they should have been thinking about, okay, after our tenure, how do we fix this land to work? They can even amend the constitution and make it effective from the next dispensation. But every part of the law must be amended. The electoral reform is very, very paramount. The OYS report is there. What stopped them from implementing it? The other day, they came up with a Orasaya report. Up to today, it has gone into voicemail. They've not done anything about it. So we want to appeal to them. It has gone beyond rhetorics. They must do it, or Nigerians must compel them to do it. But compelling them, first of all, must come with us realizing that these guys are our employees.
Right.
It has to come with mental and the mind orientation. If the average Nigerian comes to that understanding, that all these political office holders are your employees, then that will be the first point of call in having a orientation of this land.
All right. We have a breaking news. Let's quickly head to Ikeja. We have an update that the Democratic Socialist Movement is protesting now in Ikeja, and our correspondent is there, Adeshewa Odushoga. Good morning, Shewa. What exactly is going on where you are?
Good morning, Olive. It's a protest by, just like you mentioned, Democratic Socialist Movement. It's a civil society group, and they said they are protesting against the economic hardship in the country. They have several demands for the president and the administration. There's a heavy police security presence here. I'm just going to be moving close to that. So you can see that the heavy police presence here, trying to ensure that the protest is not hijacked, and then to ensure free vehicular movement around the area. So these are the protesters, and then part of their demand is that they are calling for an end to the hardship and hunger. They are also calling for the end to the fee hike for students, of university students, and then cancellation of the student loans. They are also asking the government to end insecurity and police brutality, amongst other things. They are calling that journalists and also political activists who have been detained in the past be released immediately. And then generally, they are just asking that inflation be controlled and prices of food especially be brought down to a very affordable rate. So now they're asking the president to ensure that things are returned to normalcy, maybe not, if at all, to return things to how he had met it before he was, elected president. Now they're asking the president that if he cannot meet up to these demands, they're asking the president to as much as resign from his position as the president of the country. You can see from their placards bearing different inscriptions. Many of them said, solve our problem or resign. Hashtag revolution now. They're also asking the reversal of all anti-people neoliberal policies of privatization and deregulation and devaluation of the naira. Like them, there's a placard here that says that President Tinubu let the poor breathe. Most of the things that they are asking for basically is to ensure that the economy is returned to normalcy and that the price there's a hike in the food prices and of course petrol be brought down to an affordable rate. Olive.
All right. I mean, is there any information as to whether they are linked or tied to any political group? Have they shared any of that information? And also, do you have members of the public, joining them in their protest?
Yes, definitely. When they started, it was basically just the members of the civil society group. But as soon as the protest started, they started to draw attention. And then people, the general public started to, join them gradually as soon as the protest started. We see some of them, agitating and screaming on top of their voices and saying that the president must, as well as bring the prices of food down, especially Gary, which used to mean the food for the poor. And they're saying that their children are stopped going to schools because school fees have become, there's a hike in school fees. And a lot of them are asking that I hope they would not be arrested. Some of them are deterred by the heavy presence of security. But a lot of them are not, the presence is not stopping them in any way. Some of them are saying join the protest. If you look from this angle where you have pressmen, there are some people, onlookers, who are also, asking if you can join the protest. There are some of them, at the other side of the road, filming, and while some of them are giving comments as to how this protest should have started long before now and not wait till Democracy Day.
All right, Adeshawa, thank you so much for bringing us that update. As soon as we have more information, we'd definitely like to have you again. Do stay safe and talk soon. All right, we, of course, will be speaking with Inibehe Obiari, and let's talk about what we've just heard. There's a protest going on there. They're asking for a number of things. But I'd like us, you heard all the things they're asking for. They're protesting about, regarding the student loans, the increase in cost of living. There's a lot that they're looking at. So talk to me about, or to us about the importance of civil organizations, the strength that they have, or the strength that they wield when they go on protests. And really, is the government listening to these calls?
Olive, I think we also have to be very careful about controlled rallies and controlled protests. There is something I've seen in Nigeria most recently. Even the government of the day sometimes sponsor some of these guys under a controlled arrangement. Let there be some semblance of, protest not getting out of hand. Like you saw what is happening here. We have over hundreds of policemen trying to control protests. When we have insecurity, pockets of insecurity across Nigeria, where they're supposed to be controlling the insurgency and all those stuff. Now, look at their demand. And we must also understand that it's just not the president. We have 36 governors, we have 774 local government chairmen who receives 48% of allocation from the federation account. Beyond Mr. President, the governors also have roles to play. Local government chairman has roles to play. And the issues they've listed, bringing down inflation, cost of living, inflation, insecurity, is a holistic thing. And we must, and everything also points down to the foundation. There's no magic wand that Mr. President or anybody can wield if we don't tackle the roots from the foundations. And that rot, I'll give you an example. How did we get to this point? The two policies pronouncement, the removal of subsidy and the margin of the multiple exchange rates, will have worked if the operatives within the system have done their own part. I'll give you an example. The law of demand and supply simply says when supply is more than demand, prices will come down. When demand far outstrips supply, prices will go up. If you look at the foreign exchange market, between 1999 to 2015, under Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, and Jonathan, Naira lost only 111 Naira to $1, from 88 Naira in 1999 to 124.99 Naira under Jonathan. Why? because we had huge inflow of our crude oil revenues coming in, which accounts for almost 85-90% of our foreign exchange earnings. But under Buhari, our crude oil output depleted. In fact, in 2010, there was even a time we did 2.8 million barrels a day. And one would have expected a man that tagged himself Mr. Integrity, not corrupt and everything, would have moved the ante up from 2.5 million to 3.5 million barrels a day. But under Buhari, our output disappeared.
Yeah.
Between 1999 to 2009, our daily consumption of PMS was less than 28 million liters a day. And that was when we had 4 million middle class who earned over $120,000 per annum in this Nigeria. Yet we were only consuming 28 million liters a day. At a time when the economic position of Nigerians have so depleted, purchasing power reduced. Under Mike Antibaru and Buhari, going forward, we saw the consumption numbers going up from 58 million to 66 million, and these are criminal Ponzi games. You saw NNPC lamely denying that there was no Ponzi games here. Under Buhari and Obasanjo, you know the thing that shocks me? I expected a President Tinubu who was an oil and gas, he was a treasurer of Mobil. The first thing he would have done before he even talked about removing fuel subsidy and also was to have cleared the stable. Buhari brought in tanker worms who not only depleted our crude oil output but increased humongous consumption, Ponzi consumption. Because if you saw it, they spent $16 trillion, $34 billion on subsidy that was not there. And Nigerians were seeing these things. We knew the level of kleptomaniacs under Buhari was out of this world. What would have expected Tinubu as president? First of all, to have removed the leadership at NNPC and NMDPRA and brought in people who are honest, who are sincere, who are competent. If we had been producing crude oil to the level it was when Buhari became president, at the current market price, dollar to naira would have been at 150 naira to $1. But it never happened. If we have removed the current security architecture and overhauled it based on creative recommendations that we prefer to them, today, all the amount of Buhari, we had only insecurity in Northeast. Buhari came in after spending and squandering 27 billion. He ended up sharing insecurity across Nigeria. When he became, there was no insecurity in Northwest. Northwest and the South, it was the most peaceful regions in Nigeria when Buhari became president.
Right.
Today, Katsina State had become the headquarters of banditry.
Yeah,
I don't think
there's still dozens being killed.
So
I think I saw
for us to fix this thing, we need to amend the constitution, and then the immediate step, clear out the bunch of incompetent people that you had in the oil and gas sector. Overhaul the security architecture of Nigeria to allow Nigerians to go to work.
Yeah.
Today, we produce only 30% of what we consume.
Yeah.
And we can produce 200% of what we consume.
Right,
we
we
can
have,
only do it when there's security.
Yeah, there's so much. This conversation can go on for days or even weeks. We, of course, would like to hear what Nigerians are saying, from different parts of Lagos on celebrating Democracy Day. Nameka Barry, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for
It was interesting speaking
Thank you
with
very much.